Good morning, friends. We're going to start to get into Dharma and purpose, and in my specific story, start to discuss the unfolding of Just Love Forest. So, to date, I've been taking you through my journey of an unsought after, unexpected spiritual awakening and trying to articulate with words and sort of giving you somatic experience around what that has been like, both the unabated joy and the excitement and the mystery and the challenge, which is all part of it. You're not absolved from anything in incarnation. In fact, you experience all the facets of an incarnation in a more juicy, deep, intimate way, because there's not numbing and there's not illusion, and you're not blind to things that either you chose to be or you were unaware that you were blind toward previously. So, as I mentioned, many of us, especially in the Western world, were raised in a way that seeks pleasure but also preserves stability and security and safety. We are in this interconnected global experience. We're permeated with messages of pain and sorrow and hatred and rage. Our daily experience oftentimes is the counter to that. So, in our microcosm of a tribe, oftentimes, if we really think moment to moment throughout our day, generally speaking, when we choose to notice, there are tremendous moments of kindness and patience and joy and love. Oftentimes, we don't take the simplicity of those acts as miracles. We don't notice them as much as we notice the bombing or the murder or the rape or whatever it is. And in that, as we're raised in, again, primarily a Western society, which I can speak to from my own experience, we're raised that achievement allows you to acquire things so that you can create a buffer. It's really about creating a buffer of safety. And it's really branded as freedom to choose without anyone else's will against your own. So whatever you feel, whatever you think, you can get what you want. And so that bubble of security, of achievement, also creates a disconnection. It obliterates the reality of a lived experience of a human being as the nature of interdependence. And the nature of interdependence as tribes of human beings, cities, states, countries, the globe, but also of all of life. So the interdependence of all of life, not just what we think that we identify as a human being with a name. And so, unknowingly, unwittingly, as we are awarded and rewarded and gather accolades from a number of different parts of our life, oftentimes we are creating this false notion of freedom, in the sense, a selfish freedom. And a selfish, not even a negative, but a selfish freedom that the self, who I think I am, can do and get and be whatever I want to be. And that's really a lot of what the story, or at least the historical story, of the American dream has been, right? That you can do and you can be whatever you want to be. That was never actually married to the promise of fulfillment. That was never demonstrated as a long-standing proven experiment of prosperity in terms of everything beyond just material wealth and accumulation. So things like fulfillment and joy and purpose, intimate relationship, connection, all of those things. The studies going back to science, the longest running study on what actually When people identify themselves in a state of happiness, what is it? It's relationships. It's long-standing relationships. It is that interdependence. And most of what we have been fed is contrary to that. It is, if you want to be happy, you can just push all this other nonsense, all these other people and their ideas and their needs, you can push them further and further away so that your personal solitude, your privacy, your quiet, that you are in full control and you are creating, can be just the way you want it. And oftentimes we do see people who have accumulated a lot of wealth tend to be very disconnected and lonely. Not always. It's not a direct correlation, but many times, because again, they have created this numbness around them of this story of the control of selfishness being that I myself am the primary thing in my life, and it overrides all other needs and desires and wants, right? So for our country and our time in this place, oftentimes that, when I refer to in the other podcast, socialization, that's a big part of the socialization. No one's fault. I don't buy into these stories that there's like groups of people planning and strategizing to, affect the masses in certain ways. I think that is often a fear-based myth as well. It's just the nature of it's the nature of how society has developed with technology and money. We are a collective experiment of humanity and consciousness. So the wave of consciousness represented as all these beings is experimenting with science and technology and wealth and abundance and lack. It's constantly, it's experimenting with itself, consciousness and our state of being. It is self-evolving, right? Just like the weather. The weather is changing in relation to climate, and the climate is changing because the factors in which it's playing with are different than it's had before. Consciousness and human beings and society as an aggregate, it's the same. These are new variables, a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a microsecond of all of life's presence in this place. We are just playing with these variables. Not good, not bad, just the play of the universe. So when I do these talks, I always tell you, I'm talking from my direct experience. So I'm sharing. I'm not teaching. I am not trying to win you over. I'm not trying to convince you. I'm simply sharing my direct experience. So it's not what I believe. I didn't read something and it felt interesting or cool that I would kind of attach myself to. I'm not tied to an agenda that I need to save someone, or I need to even like make your life better, whatever that means. I happen to be sitting here creating the sharing, and you happen to be wherever you are sitting there watching, and in my experience, it's just as simple as that. And I say that because what we're going to talk about today is relevant to my experience of a soul and reincarnation and the purpose of a human life. So I was raised Episcopalian, and it was fairly loose in terms of there was no regiment teachings, that said you must believe this. This is the way only. It was very open. It was very relaxed. And I wouldn't even say that I deeply contemplated a lot of things at that point in my life. That point being through childhood, through, like my mid-teens. So having had that awakening experience and having had a couple of natural samadhi type experiences, samadhi is the highest form of meditation where you naturally are pulled back into your truest identity of all of creation, of all of the universe. I'm going to talk about those couple of experiences in separate podcasts at some time, and also work with sacred plants. It's very clear to me, based on the structure of those experiences, that there is a macrocosm that has an order, and within that order, I am a soul. And a soul would be an ongoing essence that extends beyond one lifetime. It extends beyond multiple lifetimes, ultimately all merging back into the one. So everything is one. I am God, you are God, we're all God. And this fragmentation of these souls and these galaxies, we learn more and more from these telescopes and things that are interesting. It's fascinating to have direct experiences in various forms and functions, and then watch also science and popular culture and mass media start to basically say the same thing. We start to see that in every little speck of the galaxy, that the number of solar systems and the planets and those that potentially have life like Earth or can support life in some form. It used to be only maybe 10 years ago, it was like, oh, I don't think there's anything out there that could be like Earth. And now every 6 months, the number keeps going up and up. Infinite forms of life and infinite possibilities of life. And so you are taking an incarnation by your own choice before your birth. Again, you don't need to believe this. This is what I'm sharing. So your soul has a number of things that it needs to go through, experiences, learnings, all these interactions that you call daily life that you may like, you may not like, may be stressful, they may not be stressful. You're just personifying them as the story of whether it was a good or a bad day. That's superfluous superfluous to the idea that it's all lessons, it's all learning. It's just a choice of how we're receiving it as a witness of the experience. So everything is a lesson. Everyone who you just happen to run into, every person you make eye contact with, every person you get subtle or direct energy from, all of that is tied into the perfection of your incarnation. How you're taking that in, how you're receiving it, how you're filtering it, what lessons are coming through. And you have choices. You get to make choices on how you're receiving this, and then how you integrate it into the experience of your life and your being, and then how you use your energy and your learnings to then affect your perception of affecting the world around you, right? So it's full circle. It's very few people who do great things take in negative energy everywhere. Their filter tends not to be looking for the negative or stuck in the pain or the suffering only. It tends to be that they can take all of it as the lessons of the perfection, all of it, the quote unquote good, the quote unquote bad. It's all lessons, it's all growth, it's all development. And the only reason that we push certain things away is it's fear-based. It's based on maybe our forgetting or lack of direct experience that we might die, and that's bad, or there's something to be afraid of there, or we might lose our belongings, we might lose our status, whatever that means in whatever part of whatever story you're in. All of that is to say that when you come to understand that you're a soul and you're here to learn and you're here to absorb every lesson in perfection, then you start to ask the question, like, what is my purpose? If it's not about creating that force field of numbness, if it's not about radiating the selfish desires of control, if it's not about getting your way and proving a story of your worth based on achievement and accomplishment, well, what is it? What is the purpose of this experience that is mental, physical, emotional, psychological, spiritual, all these layers? The mental layer, the physical layer of having a body, the emotional, psychological layer of who you think you are and how you feel that you're experiencing the world, and turning that into a series of stories that ultimately all of that, your thoughts and your body, your physical actions and your mind and how it's perceiving the story of what's occurring, like that is your spiritual life, the culmination of all of that, being conscious of all of those layers and all of those inputs, either maybe for fragments of time, or maybe there's a perpetual seat of the witness. Perpetual seat of the witness being that you're always observing the lessons. You're always observing all these layers working in coordination. And so that can be more of a perpetual experience of learning in a very active, direct way. Or it can be active and passive. You can have those moments of insight, and then much of it can be passive until you have a moment to breathe, meditate, reflect, and then you say, yes, that's right, I forgot. Yeah, I'm a spirit in a human body. I just forgot. It all makes sense what happened yesterday now, It's fluidity. We all are going at a certain pace with how we do and don't sit in the seat of the witness. So as you are able to perceive the true experience of all of these layers, then we get into something referred to more as Dharma, your Dharmic path. And for many people, as they start to experience the spiritual path, there's a crucial question that starts to underlie all of the actions and all of the thoughts and how we're perceiving what we're doing. And that's whether or not you, as you know yourself and your own story, whether or not you are doing it all. Are you doing it all, or are there other things that are happening through you? If you just go to the simple examples, like if I ask, how did I lift my arm just then? And then you might start to go to science and, muscles and nerves. That's just an equation, but how is this thing moving like this? How is that all happening as I'm moving tens of thousands of miles on this rock through this expanding infinite universe? The point is, we don't actually really know how. We have these stories using pointable directions and science and calculations to help us feel like we can consistently measure things and understand our relationship to them. But the reality is, even if you think about it truthfully, you can't tell me how this simple act is happening right here. There's so much that we don't know, and it's not a fear-based not knowing. There's a freedom when you can feel comfortable in all of creation. It says, I don't know. It's so cool that this can happen. How's it happening? We don't know. That's playful, that's fun, that is inquisitive. That's the I don't know of absolute freedom and absolute truth. So your Dharma, your Dharmic path is sometimes is referred to. I had this realization after reading some books and doing some contemplation that, and this is a while ago that I had this insight. Everything I had been raised with was this tremendous excitement that was that was instilled within me, that I could be anything I wanted to be. And what that meant was I was free, the story of freedom, to choose, even if that wasn't true. But that's how it's presented. I could choose to be anything that I wanted to be. And then I had the ability and resources and things to do that. After reading about more of the Bhagavad Gita, which is a very famous Indian Hindu Vedic religious text, and also reading some commentaries on Dharma and Dharmic path, I got to the point where I was like, I can't be anything I want to be. I cannot be anything I want to be and it be completely aligned with my purpose and my soul. And the not being able to be anything I want to be which sounds counter to everything we've been enculturated with, was like so exciting. I got so happy. I was like, I can't be anything I want to be. I don't have to figure it out. I don't have to pretend that I'm searching for a purpose because I don't have to do it. I don't have to play the game as a 18-year-old to pick my life's purpose at a college or university or profession. We know that doesn't work for 90% of the population. All we do is screw people tremendous amounts of debt often. It doesn't work because we tell them they can do anything and be anything they want to be, but we don't tell them how to get to the depth of finding true alignment to their purpose. We don't tell them that there's actually already something built into this incarnation that is your truest, singular, highest potential and purpose that you can do and be. And not as an overachiever, it's not that. It's like your alignment will be so pure with it that what you will do will be unfathomable to others, and it will be incredibly hard and incredibly easy at the same time, only for you. Only for you. And all this other nonsense about figuring it out and then you're wrong 6 months later, or a year, or 6 years later, all that can just fly out the window, because once you get in your Dharma and your Dharmic path, you're not doing it anymore. Don't worry about answering the question who or what is doing it, because it just closes you off at this point. It's irrelevant at this moment. Just know that in your heart of hearts, you're not doing it, and there is a way for you to tap into that not doingness so that tremendous miracles can happen through you, not by you, but through you in this singular lifetime. And you don't have to do anything to make it happen other than to get in contact with the absolute truth of what your Dharma is. That sounds great, sounds interesting, right? It doesn't guarantee you riches, because it doesn't guarantee you numbness, because it doesn't guarantee you the selfishness, the force field of the selfishness that is parlayed into the enculturation that society has offered you at this time in the West. It doesn't play that game. It's not a player in that game. It is outside of that very small construct that we have been fed. This is something that has existed since the beginning of time, way before humans, way before this planet. The Dharma of the universe is absolute truth and purpose for all life. The humans are very interesting because as incarnating as a human, you get to experience choice. My dog is completely aligned with her Dharma. And that's why she's in the present moment, and that's why she works miracles every day without fail. She affects everything around her. She affects me, and she affects everyone who comes into her field, just like every other dog. She's not exceptional. They know their purpose. They incarnated, just like we did, to be part of a family situation, a family unit. But they don't have to wake up in the morning and ask what they should do, what is their purpose. They are doing it perfectly. So by design, they are aligned with their Dharma. All animal and plant life is 100% aligned with their Dharma. A plant does not wake up in the morning and try to decide what its purpose is. Maybe I won't face the sun today. I've done that enough. Maybe I'll just kind of walk off. No. It's a miracle that it's transmuting the sun into food and energy. All of its needs are being satisfied in perfect alignment. And there's no questioning that. They're not taught that. That's their dharmic alignment of perfection. Humans are a little different. We are souls that are going through what would appear like a crisis. But when you get into the seat of the witness and you remind yourself about the lessons and the teachings, and that we can't screw it up. We can't screw up our life, and we can't screw up the world and the universe. Now you might say, yeah, but look at all the terrible things that we're doing. And I would say, yes, it is completely terrible. And there's a lot of pain and suffering and anxiety and anguish, and that's all a very real experience of being a human in a human body. But as a human in a human body, we get to affect change, our perception of change, by our experience of making choices. And other forms of life don't necessarily have that relationship with their Dharma in such a way. So the experience of Dharma is very potent for a human because we can experience alignment and misalignment with it, and that can change through periods of our life. We can come into realizations and we can get more aligned, and we can make the choice to get less aligned. We can experience directly through our body and our mind and our health and our relationships alignment and misalignment, and the evolution between those two things. It's experienceable multiple times throughout a single lifetime. So, your Dharma. There are connective truths of being a human. We all feel and experience versions of intensity of pleasure and pain based on the stories of our preferences. I'm not going to quote this perfectly, but there's a quote, and I don't even know who it's by at this moment. I apologize, but it's just coming to mind, that the path forward is always easy for those who have no preferences. And we just have no preferences, but we do. And so the path forward is a series of learnings that are experiential and sometimes challenging based on the stories of our preferences. If we just didn't have the stories of our preferences, and we can just get up and the sun would rise and we'd be a plant and we'd photosynthesize and we receive the energy and we give it back to the earth. We'd receive in carbon and give out oxygen, and all of that was in balance. And it's the perfect samadhi meditation. Don't disrespect plants. Their alignment with their Dharma is far more clear and consistent than ours. So how do you start to know what your Dharma is? Now that you kind of know that this is a thing, regardless of how you're receiving it or repelling it, let's just assume for a minute that you can't be anything that you want to be. And when I say you can't, since we're talking to a lot of Americans, and that's counter to everything that you're raised with, you can be anything that you want to be. But that will not be matched with contentment, joy, and purpose. That's the caveat. You can be anything you want to be, and many things are the things that many people are the things that they wanted to be in their mind at this time in this country. And there's a tremendous amount of suffering, a tremendous amount of disconnection, a tremendous amount of inequality, a tremendous amount of racism. The list goes on and on, right? Do you want to be whatever you choose to be at any cost, at any price, because many people have signed that contract? Or do you want to tap into the fact that if you can't be anything you want to be, there is a thing that you can be, which can give you peace and harmony, alignment and purpose? That's your Dharma. That's your Dharmic path. Now, finding your Dharmic path goes back to pretty much everything we've been talking about. Before my awakening, I was in a lot of pain because I was doing all the things that we just said that we shouldn't be doing. I was trying to acquire and attain and impress people and create buffers of freedom, meaning I could control my environment the way I wanted to with money, and vacations and all the things. And I was listening to a podcast during that period of suffering. This was toward the end of Cloud Tags, which was my startup that was not going well. And it never used the word Dharma, but it was about life's purpose. And they said, it's a simple exercise. You can just take a piece of paper and write down all the things you would like to be spending your time doing. Like take out money, take out all these things. Just what are the things that you want to do in this lifetime? Just make a list. Very simple exercise. And I usually don't do things like that if I hear it on a podcast. But I said, okay, yeah, sure, why not? I'm suffering. So I actually wrote out, all the things I wanted to be doing with the time I had in this lifetime. Don't even worry about calling it something. Don't call it a career. Don't call it a relationship. Just the totality of your life. This experience, this singular experience, and what you see as time. Just make a list. What are the things, I don't think they use the word soul, but what are the things your soul wants to experience, needs to experience? There's a yearning to experience. I did that. And I pulled it out of my desk this morning. So many of these things, after I wrote this down, I'm doing now as my life. Many of them I wasn't touching at all. First one on the list was learn meditation. I had no idea what was coming. But in addition to those experiences I've talked about, I've also finished the 2-year meditation teacher program with Tara Brock and Jack Kornfield. So, hiking alone, spending time alone in nature, seeing things through, to completion, becoming a stronger leader, whatever that meant to me at the time, probably very different things, managing money better, remaining in a state of positive being, become a trainer. I don't think it was specific, but a trainer and a writer, master yoga and Pilates. So I wasn't doing any of those things. On the backside, haven't driven across the country yet. Haven't done the Appalachian Trail yet. Have a fulfilling life with my partner. Have kids. Haven't done that one yet. Become a spiritual teacher. And the last one was just the word be. I wasn't doing any of those things at all at that point when I wrote that list. But there's something inside of me before all this happened that knew that those were the kinds of things I wanted to align with. Again, if I take out all the false notions of the pressures and the barriers and the can'ts, if I get to purpose, like what would I like to experience for purpose in this lifetime, that list was incredibly helpful. And I've kept it for a reason, although I don't look at it very often. Because those things are already known before any of these experiences. Like they were already inside of me from a purpose-driven point of view, perspective. So your Dharma, this is what is the exciting part of everything I've been talking to you about so far. So a lot of what we've talked about is surrender and how do you start to do nothing. And again, to reiterate, I've said, for those who can truly learn to do nothing and get beyond, again, the popularized notion of nothingness being laziness and slovenly life, like, no, it couldn't be further from the truth. When you can tap into the nothingness, the other side of that is you come in contact with everything. And I always say to people, like, if you can truly do nothing, everything is what's bound to happen, because everything and nothing are complete, in equal relationship to each other. So your Dharma, the thing that you're here, the one thing, when I say one thing, the one path, the singular focus, the sankalpa, right? The statement of being of your life. You can look up sankalpa to kind of understand, S-A-N-K-A-L-P-A. The statement of your being it starts to happen to you through you. So not only you can't be anything that you want to be, caveat, asterisk, and be fulfilled and have purpose and develop your soul in the most aligned way. Once you know that you can't be anything and you can be the thing, you don't even have to do it. You don't even have to find it. Once you have that realization in your mind and your consciousness that there is actually something there, that moment of realization, that opening that creates this space that actually comes into you, that is what I would call manifestation. Very different than using magical powers to manifest a car or a house or all this other nonsense of that selfish sphere of numbness. You want to play around with magic tricks to create and expand your numbness and disconnection? Yeah, you can do it. It's fine. It's not helpful to your soul. It's not the purpose of this life. Ultimately, it is for you because it's what's happening. But I'm offering that you can get to it, so to speak, and allow the purpose and the point to come into you, into your life. This is all a preamble for the story of Just Love Forest. My life today is very interesting. I cannot have, in my most creative mind, come up with the vision of what's unfolded so far. I have no idea what the future will bring. There was some part of me early on, after my awakening, that felt like, oh, it'd be cool maybe to have a retreat center of some sort. I have no idea what that means. I don't know what it would do. I don't know where it would be. I don't know how I would be in relationship to it. And there was a little bit of a vision, like very scant vision of just like what that might look like. And Just Love Forest is nothing like that. It is 10 million times better because I haven't done it. Like when I say that, do you believe me? That's really the question for you. Everything I'm about to tell you with the forest, like, I have not done it. I'm not doing it. And that's not me trying to downplay my contribution. I could not, as an individual, do what is being done on its own. I'm not talking about giving credit to a team. I'm not talking about being humble. Those are all good things. That is not this conversation. I'm telling you that as I have had realizations and done practices within myself and created spaciousness and allowed, and most importantly, had courage to move forward on what has come in, I witness it and observe it and appreciate it just like everyone else does. That's the crazy part. Someone says, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful, and this weekend changed my life. It's such an amazing place. I can look them directly in the eye and be like, yes, it is, because I'm receiving it just like they are. They're not receiving me. They're not receiving my creation. I'm not going, oh yeah. Makes me feel so good that I created this thing in my mind and planned it all out, and now this is the outcome. I'm like, yeah, we're all so lucky. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for experiencing what I'm experiencing. Thank you that we get to share this experience of what is transpiring here. It's beautiful to be able to not have to downplay. Be like, yeah, That's freaking amazing. Because again, it's not mine. I haven't done it in that sense. So I like to stop these around 40-45 minutes. I'm going to do a separate one. This is, I guess, has become the preamble to Just Love Forest. But again, to just bring it all together, if you are suffering through this incarnation, suffering by itself is not bad, but if your primary experience is suffering, and if you can attach that suffering clearly to a misalignment of the fruits of your labor, the fruits of your time, the fruits of your talent, if that's the disconnection, know that you don't have to figure it out. You don't have to find your purpose. You don't have to go to lots of classes. You don't have to go to the Himalayas. Your purpose already exists. You don't have to create it. It's already part of your incarnation in your life. It's already in your heart. What you have to do is you have to polish the mirror of your heart. Right? You have to do sadhana. Doesn't have to be with me. You can do millions of forms of sadhana, but you have to clean, and you have to get quiet, and you have to simplify, and that oftentimes will create spaciousness. Because if you're doing all this other stuff that you know is actually nonsense and trash, if you keep doing it, you can't hear anything. You can't listen. You can't invite it in. You know, it's like you're inviting the universe into your very small home of what you consider your life and your space, not to tell you anything. It'll just start doing the work. You know, opportunities will be brought to you. People will be brought to you. Lessons will be brought to you. Doesn't mean in correlation with wealth. Can be for some people. Everyone's lessons are different. But it will mean a direct correlation with purpose, and it will be something that you know and you feel. And actually, I'll say one step further, if you try to go find it, if you try to make it happen, you might ultimately still merge those paths, but there's a good chance that as you meddle with your mind and you meddle with your desires, that you just might create another infinite loop. Or it might be directionally kind of there and also still ends up in this numbing, disconnected mess. You know, I've told people you can take any passion, any idea, you can start with like the idea, this is my passion, I'm going to bring it into the world as a business or some other kind of physical manifestation. All of those, 100% of them can become your personal hell. Like you can create immense pain and suffering for yourself from the truest passion if the alignment and every step through to delivery is not clean and pure and aligned. We can talk about spiritual materialism all day long, right? All these products that are being created, you know, traps. They're traps for you to get to that simplicity and that purity and that cleanliness. So the message is that you can't be whatever you want to be. You cannot. You don't have multiple purposes in a single lifetime. There are not multiple things to be aligned with. There's a singular purpose. And you don't have to figure it out. You do have to trust and you do have to have courage, and those are built up through spiritual practices. You have to have trust in the universe and your relationship thereof. You have to have the virtue of courage to allow all these things to happen. But you definitely don't do it in the sense that you're going to go make it happen. It's an undoing to allow the doing to occur, not by you, but through you. So we'll talk more about it, but this is the sort of intro, the preamble to how I've approached everything with Just Love Forest. And I'm excited to share those stories of all of my learnings and these experiments, because they're all experiments with the nature of a life and the universe and money and time and relationships and love. All those things are what this creation is about, this experience is about. And the forest is forever unfolding. The lessons continue every month. It's beautiful. But for today we stop. Thank you for listening. Thank you for receiving. Thank you for co-creating with me, even in this moment. This is a co-creation, just sharing energy and time and space, truth. And I wish you all the best on getting back to that simple place. Simplicity, truth, quiet. Allowing things to be known through you instead of as you, instead of for you, just through you. Whatever that can mean, wherever you're at in your incarnation. Thank you.